From the outside, my marriage to Jack seemed perfect. Everyone said we were the ideal couple. I was the elegant marketing executive who turned heads at every party. He was the quiet software developer who preferred to stay in the background. We complemented each other perfectly, or so I thought. Our modest house in the Seattle suburbs wasn't exactly what I dreamed of. But Jack always said we had everything we needed. I used to believe him. That was before I started working at Sterling Technologies. Before I met Blake Sterling. Before I realized how small our world really was. The day I walked into Sterling Technologies changed everything. The building itself was a masterpiece of glass and steel. 50 floors of pure luxury rising above downtown Seattle. My heels clicked against the marble floors as I made my way to reception. Everything screamed success, power, and wealth. It was a far cry from the dull office park where Jack worked. Emma Thompson? The receptionist smiled warmly. Mr. Sterling is expecting you. I smoothed my dress, the most expensive one I owned, and followed her to the elevator. Blake Sterling's office occupied the entire top floor. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a breathtaking view of the Space Needle. He stood as I entered, and my heart skipped a beat. Tall, impossibly handsome, in a suit that probably cost more than our car. Emma, he said, extending his hand. Welcome to Sterling Technologies. His smile was magnetic, confident, everything Jack wasn't. Thank you for this opportunity, I managed to say. Your portfolio is impressive, he said, gesturing for me to sit. We need someone with your vision to lead our marketing department. The salary he offered was triple what I was making. I accepted without hesitation. That night, I couldn't wait to tell Jack the news. He was in his usual spot on the couch, laptop balanced on his knees. Honey, I got the job, I exclaimed. He looked up, smiling that gentle smile I used to find so endearing. That's wonderful, Em. I'm proud of you. But he didn't ask about the salary. Didn't ask about the office. Didn't seem to understand what this meant for us. The first few weeks at Sterling were intoxicating. My team occupied the 48th floor. My office had a view that made me never want to leave. The company cafeteria served sushi and champagne. Everyone dressed like they'd stepped out of a magazine. And then there was Blake. He had a way of making everyone feel special. But with me, it was different. He'd stop by my office just to chat. Send me texts about random marketing ideas at midnight. Invite me to strategy meetings I probably didn't need to attend. I started staying late at the office. Jack never complained. He'd just heat up leftover dinner and ask about my day. His contentment with our simple life began to grate on me. One evening, Blake invited the executive team to his penthouse. Bring your husband, he said with that perfect smile. I'd love to meet the man who won your heart. I almost made an excuse for Jack. Almost said he was busy with work. But something made me want them to meet. Maybe I needed to prove to myself that I hadn't settled. The night of the party, I laid out Jack's best clothes. Honey, please wear the Hugo Boss suit, I begged. He frowned at the designer label. I'm comfortable in my khakis. This is important, I insisted. These are my colleagues. He sighed but put on the suit. It was the only designer piece he owned, a gift from me last Christmas. Blake's penthouse took up the entire top floor of downtown's most exclusive building. The elevator opened directly into his living room. Modern art worth millions adorned the walls. A grand piano sat near floor-to-ceiling windows. The city lights sparkled below like a carpet of diamonds. "Emma." Blake's voice carried across the room. "You look stunning." He kissed my cheek, his hand lingering on my waist. "And this must be Jack. I've heard so much about you." Jack shook his hand, polite but reserved. "Nice place," he said, looking around. Blake laughed. "Just a simple bachelor pad." Simple. The word felt like a mockery. Nothing about Blake Sterling was simple. As the evening progressed, I watched Jack retreat into himself. He stood awkwardly in corners, nursing the same glass of wine. My colleagues barely acknowledged him. Why would they? He was just a regular developer. Not a tech visionary like Blake. "Your husband seems nice," Madison whispered to me. The pause before nice spoke volumes. I found myself making excuses for him. "He's just shy," I said. Not used to these kinds of events. But inside, something was shifting. The contrast between Jack and Blake became impossible to ignore. One represented everything I'd ever wanted. The other reminded me of everything I was trying to leave behind. That night marked the beginning of the end. Though I didn't know it then. I started finding reasons to work late. Team dinners became more frequent. Blake always seemed to be there. His attention made me feel alive. Important. Desired. Jack never questioned my absences. Never checked my phone. Never showed a hint of jealousy. His trust should have touched me. Instead, it frustrated me. "Fight for me," I wanted to scream. "Show me you care." But he just smiled and asked if I'd eaten dinner. The distance between us grew. I started noticing everything wrong with our life. Our IKEA furniture looked cheap compared to Blake's custom pieces. Our Honda Civic felt embarrassing next to his Ferrari. Even our house, once our pride and joy, seemed small and ordinary. "We could afford better," I told Jack one evening. "We're doing fine," he replied, not looking up from his laptop. "Don't you want more?" I pressed. He finally met my eyes. "I have everything I need right here." The words that once made me feel loved now felt like chains. Madison understood. "You've outgrown him," she said over cocktails. "It happens. Look at me, I traded up twice." She showed off her latest engagement ring. 5 carats of flawless clarity. "Blake asked about you today," she added casually. My heart skipped a beat. "What did he say?" She smiled knowingly. "He thinks you're wasted on a small-time developer." The words should have angered me. Instead, they thrilled me. That night, I lay awake beside Jack, listening to his steady breathing, wondering how we'd ended up here, wondering if this was all there was. My phone buzzed softly. A text from Blake: "Still thinking about your presentation today. Brilliant." I smiled in the darkness. Jack slept on, oblivious. The next few weeks passed in a blur. More late nights at the office. More texts from Blake. More lies to Jack. I told myself I wasn't doing anything wrong. They were just innocent flirtations. Harmless attention. But deep down, I knew better. I was falling for Blake Sterling. And worse, I didn't want to stop. The breaking point came at our housewarming party. I'd insisted we throw one, though we'd lived there for years. Invited all my Sterling colleagues, including Blake. Jack agreed, as he always did. But I saw the concern in his eyes. He knew something had changed. The night of the party, I wore a new dress. Designer, of course. Cost more than our monthly mortgage. Jack raised his eyebrows but said nothing. The house filled with people. Expensive perfumes. Loud laughter. Clinking glasses. Blake arrived fashionably late, bringing a bottle of wine worth more than Jack's entire wardrobe. Beautiful home, he said, but his tone suggested otherwise. I found myself making excuses. We're planning to renovate. The neighborhood is up and coming. Each word felt like a betrayal. Jack stood in the corner, wearing his usual khakis. I'd begged him to dress up. He'd refused. This is who I am, he'd said. The wine flowed freely. My inhibitions lowered. Blake's attention became more obvious. His hand on my back. His lips close to my ear. I knew everyone was watching. I didn't care. Then Jack approached us. Quiet, steady Jack. Having a good time? He asked. Something in his tone set me off. Maybe it was the wine. Maybe it was months of frustration. Maybe it was Blake's cologne clouding my judgment. Oh, we're having a wonderful time, I said, my voice sharp. Some of us know how to enjoy life. The room grew quiet. Jack's face remained calm. That maddening, unshakable calm. What's that supposed to mean? He asked softly. I laughed, the sound brittle. Look at you, I gestured to his clothes. You couldn't even dress properly for our party. He started. But I was beyond stopping. Do you know how embarrassing it is? Everyone here is successful, ambitious. And you're just content. Content with mediocrity. I grabbed Blake's wine glass. The next moment happened in slow motion. Red wine spreading across Jack's white shirt. Gasps from the guests. Blake's low chuckle. There, I said. Now you'll have to change. Jack looked at me. Really looked at me. For the first time, I saw something new in his eyes. Not hurt. Not anger. Something colder. More calculating. He turned and walked away. The party ended quickly after that. People made excuses and left. Even Blake didn't stay long. Though he did squeeze my hand before leaving. Call me, he whispered. I stood in our empty living room. Wine stains on the carpet. Empty glasses everywhere. What had I done? Jack emerged from our bedroom. He'd changed into a clean shirt. I'll sleep in the guest room, he said quietly. I watched him walk away. Not knowing I'd just made the biggest mistake of my life. Not knowing that Jack Harrison wasn't who I thought he was. Not knowing that my perfect world was about to shatter. But I would learn. Oh, how I would learn. The next morning, the house felt different. Colder somehow. Jack had already left for work. His side of the bed untouched. I called in sick to Sterling. Couldn't face Blake after last night. Couldn't face anyone. My phone buzzed with messages from Madison. OMG, that was intense. Blake couldn't stop talking about you. Your husband's face though, priceless. Each word made me feel worse. I spent the day cleaning. Trying to erase the evidence of my public betrayal. But wine stains don't come out easily. Neither does guilt. Jack came home late. Didn't say where he'd been. Didn't say much at all. I tried to apologize. Jack, about last night. Don't, he said quietly. Just don't. He slept in the guest room again. The next few weeks were a blur. I threw myself into work. Into Blake's orbit. He was everything Jack wasn't. Passionate. Ambitious. Exciting. The late nights got later. The texts got more frequent. The touches more deliberate. Jack said nothing. Did nothing. Just watched with those quiet eyes. Then came the yacht party. Blake's latest acquisition. A 120-foot masterpiece of luxury. Bring Jack, Blake said with a smirk. If he's not too busy with his coding. I didn't even bother asking Jack. Made up an excuse about him working late. The yacht was anchored in Elliott Bay. Seattle's skyline glittered behind it. Champagne flowed freely. Music pulsed through the deck. Blake's hand found my waist immediately. You look incredible, he whispered. I melted into his touch. Everything felt perfect. Until it wasn't. The screams started around midnight. Sarah, one of the board members, had collapsed. Her body convulsing on the deck. Call an ambulance, someone shouted. But we were in the middle of the bay. Panic spread like wildfire. Then, impossibly, I heard sirens. Coast Guard vessels appeared. Following them, police boats. FBI agents swarmed the yacht. Blake's face turned ashen. Nobody move, an agent shouted. They found drugs everywhere. In cabinets. In drawers. In people's purses. Madison was handcuffed first. Then other executives. Blake tried to run. Didn't get far. I stood frozen, watching it all unfold. My perfect world crumbling. The next morning's headlines were brutal. Sterling Technologies CEO arrested. Drug ring uncovered in tech giant. Federal investigation reveals years of corruption. My phone wouldn't stop ringing. Reporters. Lawyers. Former friends. But not Jack. He just watched the news quietly. Sipping his coffee. That same unreadable expression. Sterling Technologies stock plummeted. The board called emergency meetings. My team was placed on administrative leave. Everything I'd built was collapsing. Then came the text messages. Someone had leaked them to the press. Hundreds of messages between Blake and executives. Including mine. Nothing explicitly illegal. But inappropriate. Intimate. Damning. Madison stopped taking my calls. Other friends disappeared. The same people who'd laughed at my jokes. Who'd encouraged my betrayal. Now they pretended not to know me. I sat alone in our kitchen. Reading article after article. Each one worse than the last. Jack came home early that day. Placed a magazine on the table. Forbes. The cover story made my heart stop. The silent billionaire, Jack Harrison's tech empire. His picture stared back at me. Not the quiet developer I knew. But a powerful CEO. Worth billions. Creator of the software that powered half the internet. I couldn't breathe. How? I whispered. He sat across from me. Calm as ever. I built my company from nothing, he said. Kept it private. Kept it quiet. Why didn't you tell me? Would it have mattered? I had no answer. The man I'd mocked for being simple, for lacking ambition, was worth more than Blake Sterling could ever dream of. The FBI raid wasn't a coincidence, was it? He met my eyes. Blake stole proprietary code from my company. Had been doing it for years. The drugs were just a bonus. I felt sick. Did you know? About him? About everything? I knew the moment you started working there. Knew what he was planning. What he was doing. With the company. With you. Tears rolled down my cheeks. Why didn't you stop me? His smile was sad. Some lessons need to be learned the hard way. He stood up. Placed a folder in front of me. Divorce papers. I loved you, Emma. But I deserve better. We both know that now. I watched him walk away. The man I never really knew. The billionaire in khakis. Who had watched me destroy everything. While quietly orchestrating his revenge. The media frenzy was relentless. Tech billionaire's wife's affair exposed. Sterling Technologies, a house of cards. The greatest corporate takedown in history. My phone kept buzzing. Now everyone wanted to talk. To get my Sid. Of the story. But what could I say? That I'd betrayed a good man? That I'd chosen flash over substance? That I'd been so blind? Blake faced federal charges. His empire crumbling. His reputation destroyed. He never called. Never texted. Funny how fast call me turns to silence. I tried to talk to Jack. To explain. To apologize. But his lawyers handled everything. The divorce settlement was fair. More than fair. A comfortable life, but not luxury. Just like before. When I thought we were middle class. Madison sold her story to a tabloid. Called me a social climber. Said she always knew I wasn't good enough. The same words she'd used about Jack. Now aimed at me. Karma has a sense of humor. I moved out of our house. Found a small apartment downtown. Watched as Jack's company went public. His wealth now visible to the world. He gave interviews about innovation. About changing the world. Never mentioned me. Never mentioned Blake. Just talked about the future. While I lived with the past. With my mistakes. With my regrets. And the knowledge that I had it all. A good man. A real fortune. True love. And I threw it away. For an illusion. For a man who turned out to be nothing. For a lifestyle that was built on lies. They say money can't buy happiness. But it can reveal character. Mine. Blake's. And Jack's. I learned too late which one mattered most. Now I watch Seattle's rain. From a window much smaller than before. Thinking about choices. About consequences. About the quiet man in khakis. Who is worth more than all of Blake's flash? Who loved me despite my flaws. Until I gave him reason not to. Some nights I dream about that party. The wine stains spreading across his shirt. The look in his eyes. Not hurt. Not anger. But recognition. Of who I really was. Of what needed to be done. I wake up knowing. The greatest revenge. Is the one you never see coming? Until it's too late. 6 months have passed since the divorce. Seattle's winter rain feels colder now. Or maybe it's just me. I've moved to a smaller apartment in Capitol Hill. Far from our old neighborhood. Far from Sterling Technologies' ruins. Far from everything I used to be. The news has mostly forgotten about us. Newer scandals have taken our place. Though sometimes I still catch whispers. See people pointing in coffee shops. That's her, the one who. I've learned to keep my head down. To blend into backgrounds. The way Jack used to do. Funny how life teaches you lessons. Madison reached out last week. A carefully worded text. We should catch up. I deleted it without responding. Some bridges stay burned. I found a job at a small marketing firm. No corner office. No view of the Space Needle. Just honest work. It pays the bills. Keeps me busy. Keeps me humble. Blake's trial made headlines again. 20 years for corporate fraud. Plus the drug charges. His lawyer says they'll but everyone knows it's over. The great Blake Sterling. Reduced to an orange jumpsuit. I try not to think about Jack. But Seattle makes it impossible. His company's new headquarters dominates downtown. 60 floors of gleaming innovation. His face appears on business magazines. America's most innovative CEO. The billionaire next door. How Jack Harrison changed the internet. Each headline a reminder. Of what I had. Of what I lost. I saw him once at Pike Place Market. Early Sunday morning. Still wearing those khakis. Still driving that Honda Civic. A woman was with him. Pretty, in a natural way. She laughed at something he said. The sound carried across the flower stalls. He looked happy. Really happy. Not the quiet contentment I used to mistake for weakness. But genuine joy. I ducked behind a fruit stand. Watched them buy coffee. Choose vegetables. Act like any normal couple. Except he wasn't normal. Never had been. I'd just been too blind to see it. The woman touched his arm. He smiled that gentle smile. The one that used to drive me crazy. Now I understood what it meant. Peace. Security. Strength. Everything I'd thrown away. I went home and cried that day. Not for him. Not really. But for the woman I used to be. The one who had it all. And still wanted more. Last week, I found an old photo. Us on our wedding day. His eyes full of love. Mine full of dreams. Different dreams, I realize now. He dreamed of building something lasting. I dreamed of showing it off. The local paper did a feature on him. Jack Harrison, the quiet revolutionary. They asked about his modest lifestyle. Despite his billions. Money doesn't define success, he said. Integrity does. I cut out the article. Pinned it to my wall. A daily reminder. Of what real success looks like. Sometimes I drive by our old house. It's empty now. Jack donated it to a youth coding program. Turning our failed marriage into something good. Just like him. Always finding the light in darkness. Madison's latest wedding was in the society pages. Husband number 4. Another tech executive. She looked happy. But I know that look now. The hunger behind the smile. The endless chase for more. I don't envy her anymore. My therapist says that's progress. Small steps. That's what recovery looks like. From addiction to status. To appearances. To the perfect life that wasn't perfect at all. I got a letter from Blake last month. Prison stationery. asking for help with his appeal, promising things would be different, that he still thinks about me. I burned it. Some fires need to stay dead. The new marketing firm is growing. My boss appreciates my work. My real work. Not my connections. Not my appearance. Just my skills. It feels honest. Like breathing clean air. After years of perfume, I've started volunteering at a women's shelter. Teaching marketing skills. Helping others build new vs. One woman asked why I do it. I told her about choices. About consequences. About learning the hard way. She understood. We all have our stories. Our falls from grace. Our climbs back up. Jack's company launched a new product last week. Revolutionary, they say. Will change everything. Again. The press conference was all over the news. He wore a simple blue shirt. No designer labels. No flash. Just quiet confidence. The kind that comes from knowing who you are. I watched him answer questions. Heard the passion in his voice. Saw the vision I'd been too blind to see. And finally understood. He never needed my approval. Never needed anyone's. He was building something bigger than status. Bigger than appearance. Bigger than us. While I was chasing reflections, he was creating reality. The rain is falling again. Seattle's eternal tears. Cleaning the streets. Washing away the past. I'm learning to live with my choices. To accept my role in my own downfall. To find strength in starting over. Jack taught me that. Though he never meant to. His revenge wasn't in destroying me. It was in letting me destroy myself. While he stayed true to who he was. The quiet man in khakis. The billionaire next door. The one who got away. Or rather, the one I pushed away. They say time heals all wounds. But some scars serve a purpose. They remind us of lessons learned. Of battles lost. Of the price of pride. I'm not the woman I was. Thank God for that. The one who sneered at simple things. Who needed constant validation. Who confused wealth with worth. I'm someone new. Someone real. Someone who finally understands that the greatest fortune isn't in a bank account, or a corner office, or a luxury car. It's in being true to yourself, even when no one's watching. Especially then. Jack knew that all along. And now, finally, so do I. End.